best thing I've ever seen in prison? And the answer is probably not what you think it is. It's me.
My name's John Bartolomeo. Everybody calls me Johnny Bart. This is my YouTube channel. Hang out, get educated about prison without going to prison. So welcome back to the podcast. Another week. Wow, these weeks fly by in jail. They used to drag by. My God, they go by so fast. So always a topic that everybody's interested in, and a topic that's been talked about many times in the comment section. Where is the rat, right? Because everybody talks about, there's a rat. There's talk of rats are ubiquitous. People that have informed, whatever. No good. I've never done it. My friends have never done it. Never expect anybody that I'm close to do that. It's just not the way to go. We don't do that. We never engage in anything with law enforcement. And listen, as much as you could have, an amiable other side, we never give information to the authorities. That's just the disclaimer of the show. But what I want to talk about today is how many people always jump to a conclusion, right, about that. Oh, this happened, so this guy got to be a rat. There's never really too much of causality, right? There can always be you could have a clue and inside if it's right or wrong. But a lot of people talk just to talk and to say that, oh, this happened, so this guy's a rat. There's a lot of things that happen in court cases, a lot of things that I've seen in my life. Of course, I preface that with 27 years of experience in the federal system in prison, okay? Many, many experiences in the court system before I ever got prison time, because I've had many cases in the state before I got prison time. So there's a lot of things and a lot of subtleties in law and a lot of things that happen. Believe me, I'm not defending people that cooperate. People that cooperate, I want nothing to do with them, And once I find out they cooperated with law enforcement, I try to stay as far away as I can from them, just because my reputation is built on not cooperating with law enforcement. But I have a few stories, and because just it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Oh, this guy's a rat. This happened, so you know what that is. I don't know. You can't really put two and two together in a lot of people in cases that you don't know about. Sometimes there's a lot of mitigating circumstances. Might be, there's a lot of room for downward departure in the federal guidelines, health issues, family issues. Do you ever get them when you don't cooperate? They're hard, but some people do get them. I was the type of criminal that I had nothing coming. When I had my court case, I had zero coming to me. I never got bail. I never got a downward departure. If anything, I got, a 27-year sentence and an upward departure, which is the opposite of a downward departure for a crime I was never even indicted for. So I got the opposite of that. But I'm a rare occasion on the opposite end of the pole, because many, many people that are involved in the criminal justice system, they either get their case, there's a guideline, they get their time. Me, they went over the guidelines. What people that cooperate with the government, they go under the guidelines. So a guideline is a set point that the government can give you as a sentence, okay? But I have a very interesting story, and I think I want to start with that, because I know a lot of people jump to conclusions and say, this guy's a rat, that guy's a rat. But I want to tell you that law enforcement is privy to this information as well, and they know how people psychologically react when it seems a certain way. Okay, and this is on the court level. We're going to get into the prison level too. On the court level, officers of the law in the government, they're trying to reach their objectives. They're trying to put people in prison. They're trying to solve cases. There might not be a case for a long time that, your friends like, oh, this guy's been on the street for 10 years. I did 3 bids in that 10 years. You got to be a rat. It's just not always like that. But once they got you in their scopes, they're going to get you. It's the bottom line, whether you did something or didn't do anything. Once you're in the sights, once you're in the crossfire, it's over for you. So there's a very interesting story, and it has to do with somebody in the Winter Hill Gang. It's a very notable criminal organization in Massachusetts. I'm not even going to mention the guy's name, but it's a situation, and you can look up the court records to this. I had a friend of mine, Jerry, older fellow, when I first got arrested in 1996. He was from Somerville, just a sweetheart, one of the best guys I ever met. And we used to walk in this little recreation yard, and he used to tell me all about, certain things. Like, he was kind of grooming me for a long prison sentence. He knew, you know what I'm saying? Everybody knew. But he told me about his friend who was in the Winter Hill crew, like Winter Hill Gang, with him, saying that they're trying to put this jacket on this guy, but I know it's not true. So I never really knew the specifics of the story because Jerry was very vague about what he would tell me. But as the years went on, I seen the case come to fruition. I've seen the opinion written by the judge, and I've heard people talk about it. And I've heard people talk positively about this person and negatively about this person. So I've met people in the system as this case was going on, and they would say, this guy, I know he's cooperating with the government. This shit just don't happen. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know too much about it. Then when I started to familiarize myself with it, I was like, wow, it kind of sounds odd, but everything appears and points to the fact that, yes, this guy is cooperating with the government. Now, remember this. You're dealing with professionals. Like law enforcement they're professionals in psychology. They know how you look, how you think. They're figuring out. They have classes by, people trained in these subjects to talk to them about certain things. And they know appearances mean something. When you appear to be something, you're it on the street. People just jump to the conclusion, he's this, he's that. And what happens is when somebody jumps to a conclusion wrongly about somebody, it ends up working in the favor of law enforcement because the people say, oh, they're talking about me, I'm a rat, I'm this and that. Some people fight for their reputation, as you should. Other people turn and say, you know what, they're calling me a rat, I'm going to be a rat. This guy didn't. This guy held his stance and was, one of the most stand-up guys ever in Boston. Great guy. And a judge even had to say in his opinion how he didn't cooperate, but how law enforcement made it appear that he did. And now you're saying, oh, what's this story? Another guy that didn't cooperate that did. It's not like that. So as this story progresses a little bit, as I'm moving through the system, I start hearing about this guy. And still the same thing. Oh, this guy's got to be a stool pigeon. This guy got to be a stool pigeon. They're doing this. Then there was some guy saying, hey, man, this guy's back in court. He's going back in court for a sentence reduction now. He's got to be a stool pigeon, this and that. And the way that the story ends is this. This person was going to court, okay, and ended up getting a judge writing a favorable opinion about him saying that he did not cooperate. He did not. Specifically says the government made it look like this man was cooperating for years because of the tricks they pulled and the mistreatment they gave this guy. And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Ultimately, the decision came out that he didn't. A judge said it. You can check everything. There's not one piece of paper on this guy. But half the world, probably 3/4, and the other quarter was probably whispering, I don't want to say it, but he probably is. And that's how people jump to conclusion. But listen what they did to this guy. He was in Raybrook. And the feds used to be downstairs, and they're like, hey, we want to talk to this inmate. So they used to bring him downstairs. Unbeknownst to everybody else, because what happens is when you see somebody getting pulled out, and you're like, now somebody on the yard says, I just seen this Fed truck pull up, 2 feds. I was cleaning down R&D. There's feds in the waiting room. People see everything in jail. You think like it's a controlled environment and nobody sees anything, but there's people got eyes everywhere. There's cops that talk to inmates. Say, yo, 2 FBI agents downstairs. I don't know who they're looking for. Now, you heard a guy get a visit on a Tuesday when there's no visits, and you say, 1 and 1 equals 2. Let's see how this turns out, right? So, yeah, you put things together and you assume a lot, right? So what they used to do to this guy is the FBI and a law enforcement agency used to be there. They used to take him down. And now we know, according to court documents, the guy used to tell them, hey, I don't want to talk to these people. I want to go back to my cell. Fuck these people. I want to go back to my cell. I told you before, I'm not talking to law enforcement. Solid stand-up guy. You know what they used to make him do? They sat him in R&D in a cell by himself. That's the place, receiving and discharge, where you go. Sat him in a cell by himself for 2 hours and made him wait. Why? They were punishing him for some reason, but they made it appear that he was cooperating, that he was going down. Then he would come back and say, like, "Yeah, listen, man, they kept me," and the big guys would be like, "Yeah, that's pieces of shit. I don't believe they did it." But other guys would be whispering, "He's a stool pigeon. He says that. Everybody says it." So people, that's why it's so important to have paperwork on somebody. And when you have paperwork, and it's real paperwork, and you have another guy that understands the dynamic of his case, and he's talking to you, it has to be what it is, right? But generally speaking, I try to never put a jacket on somebody unless that jacket fits them perfectly, unless it's tailored for them. You know, it's like, oh, this guy was supposed to get a mandatory minimum of 10 years. The judge only gave him 6. He's ratting. Well, you don't know that he has a son with cerebral palsy that, you know, a judge took into, you know, consideration that he was working. He was the sole provider. Now the guy's life's dead anyway. He still got 6 years. He got a 4-year, you know, sentence break, which they can do according to the guidelines. I'm just giving you an example, a hypothetical example. But this does happen. Just because somebody didn't get what they were supposed to get doesn't mean they're a stool pigeon. Okay, even if it's 80% of the time, even if it's 99.9% of the time, the worst thing in the whole world that could ever happen to somebody, especially like me, is I was doing a huge bid. Nobody ever said anything about me that I cooperated with the government, anything, because your move is if somebody says you're cooperating with the government, you'd be like, oh, really? Okay. Because we've confronted many people that have. And you know what we did? Let me see your paperwork. So here, if somebody accuses you of saying, oh, you've cooperated with the government, you'd be like, cool. I'm not going to get mad at you. I'm not going to get mad you're saying that I'm a rat, right? Ultimately, someone's getting beat up. That's it. If somebody accuses you, that's all you have. They've taken everything away from you. Picture me, a 420-month sentence. I don't have anything. But I got my fucking paperwork, and it's like pornography for a convict. You read it, you get a hard on, especially what I said to the judge. But hypothetically, you get this paperwork to somebody, and you're like, oh, somebody accused me of being a rat. Cool, all right. Here, what I want you to do is, this is every single piece of paper from my case. I want you to read it, painstakingly read it. Let's go to the law library. Let's get you some peace and quiet. I want you to read every single sentence. Because after the person reads every single sentence, then you beat them with any object you can find. That's why people don't do that to people's faces. You know, that's why people say that shit behind people's backs. Unless, of course, if it's warranted. Listen, in my neighborhood, I mean, we know the names of people that have cooperated with government. It's just no secret. Right? Of course we know. So that's a whole different story. But people get crazy in jail. People, you know, put 2 and 2 together and it equals 5. And they're like, this has got to be it. You know what I mean? And so that example I gave you was about somebody's court case. A judge castigated the government. He sat this person was there. He gave him relief. I don't know ultimately what the relief is, and I can find the case. I've read it before. But he explicitly said in his opinion that the government made it look like this guy was doing everything he could to cooperate. They mistreated him. They left him in holding cells for hours at a time when the FBI and law enforcement was there in 2 separate rooms because this guy refused to go in a room with the government. Not even be in there and sit down and say nothing. I'm refusing. I'm not going. I'm going to call my lawyer. Don't take me in there. So they kept him in a cell by himself, segregated for 2 hours on just a metal bench every time they came. And then what happened is the government, these agents started to say, it looks like he's cooperating anyway. Let's see if we can force him to our side. Let's have everybody talk, right? Because the street, everybody says, this guy's a rat, that guy's a rat. They know, the feds know that people jump to these conclusions, right? when it's a vague case you really don't know, why not make our enemies your enemy too, right? It's the oldest trick in the book. That's the thing about calling somebody a rat that's not a rat. This is how you damage the credibility of everybody. That's why you need to know exactly. A judge had to say it, and kudos to the judge that said that, you know, it was the wrong thing to do, because usually a judge would be like, hey, that was the government's tactics. They thought that was the right thing to do at the time, and no harm, no foul. But he explicitly castigated them, in his opinion, about the treatment of this person. And it come out to light that this person wasn't a rat. And so that everybody that said he was, behind closed doors, probably be like, I knew it. I told you he wasn't. When they probably were talking shit about the guy the whole time. And that's on a court level. That's on case level, right? Now, in prison, this is so, you know, prison takes on a life of its own. You've accepted it. You're not going to be in the outside world no more. So this little square that you're in, this fucking postage stamp that you're in, becomes your whole world. It's no longer the microcosm of the world. It is the world. So what happens is people start talking. Oh, you see the guy was in that guy's office? He was talking. What was he doing talking to the cops in the office? Right? And, I mean, valid point, right? But what now, after somebody goes in the cop's office, they would say, like, this guy's in the cop's office. I said, yeah, you was talking to him about fucking NASCAR. That's what they were talking about. They always talk about it. And they were like, well, I don't, you know, was he in the office talking? You don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, listen, does anybody get locked up in the block on their investigation? Did anybody go to the shoe? Did anything happen that he's given information about? Did you think about all this? Think about, like, what is his motive? Like, you know, so look at everything. And I used to tell people this. The people that are telling on people in prison, widespread, right? They get you in a room and they ask you, if you've seen what happened, would you tell us? They ask you that question because people talk to them, of course. And there's probably more people that do that than don't. Okay, I get it. But you can never make a good guy bad. You can always make a bad guy bad. A bad guy's a bad guy. But if you make a good guy bad once, you ruined it for everybody. You put a stain on everybody's name, you know? And the processes they have in prison, right? I got a little experience in this. I've talked to a lot of administrators about it. Nobody is going to go up to the warden, right, in the middle of mainline when everybody's watching and say, hey, warden, hey, this is happening in A3. They're doing this in A1. And these people, they think they're doing this, but they're really doing that. And the warden's sitting there going, yeah, never happens, bro. Does it happen maybe once? I don't know. Yeah, it probably does. But no conniving rat. They're connivers. They're selfish. They're all egotistical. They're always talking about rats. They never want to make themselves look bad. They're never going to do that. They go behind closed doors, bro. They, you know, when the move's on, they take a secret list. They got a number to call on the phone. You know, they got a way to, you know, put notes in the mailbox. A rat's never going to be seen. The rat is the one out. For instance, me, I'm going to the warden talking about they denied my wife's visits twice because they said she was wearing provocative clothing, my ex-wife. So I'm in the middle of the chow hall, like having an argument with the warden, like, warden, like, what does my wife sees what people are wearing in the visit. She wears it next week, and then they're denying her a visit because it's provocative, because she's hot. Like, you know, what, like, so then somebody come to me and be like, hey, bro, do me a favor. When you go talk to the warden, bring somebody with you. I'm like, bro, check this out. I'm talking about what I talk about with the warden. You ain't never going to worry about me. You know what I mean? And the same person that said that to me asked me to go talk to the lieutenant with him. Craziest story in the whole world, because he wants to make it look like, oh, we're bringing 2 inmates to talk to a warden. And he's talking to SIS, the investigators. We go over there, and the investigator starts naming off names, and he starts saying who could get out of the hole and who couldn't. I'm like, yo, bro, check this out. When anybody asks me who should get out of the hole, anybody, even if I got a problem with him, will handle it when he gets out of the hole. I don't keep nobody in prison. So you see that? Like, juxtapose those two things. You got one guy, me, talking to the warden about, like, you know, they keep denying my wife's visits. They terminated our visit because they said I touched her inappropriately. Like, you know, all things with my wife because she was hot and she was coming up to this rural town and she was a smoke show and everybody was jealous about it. But whatever the case may be, as we got through that, then you got another guy bringing another guy over with him and he's telling who can get out of the hole and who can't. That's like you saying, oh, this guy's sentence can be terminated early? Oh, no, he can't get out. Oh, my friend? Oh, he can get out. Absurd. Absurd. It's absurd. You either are or you aren't. You know what I mean? There's numbers you can call in prison. I know people have pack numbers that when nobody's out, they can dial a certain number. I remember dialing a number one night and so, like, because you get on there, I got 521, 490, 274, 2656. I think that was my PIN number. You had to remember all those numbers. It's amazing that I just remembered that off the top of my head, too. So you had this PIN number you had to put in. So I had to dial my number. For instance, 617-569-3331, 521, 490, 274, 2652. You had to dial all them numbers. So, but after a while, it's not the age of cell phones in prison. When you used to be able to remember numbers, you just get on the phone and you don't listen to a dial tone. You pick up the phone, you go, and you expect the phone to ring. Sometimes you hit a couple inadvertent numbers, right? You make a mistake. You're hitting 20 numbers. How many numbers is that? It's a phone number, a 9-digit code, and then a 4-digit code. That you had to put all them numbers into the system. Sometimes you hit wrong numbers. So I remember one night I'm hitting I'm calling my wife before bed, my ex-wife. So I'm trying to do it real quick. I get on there. And the guy goes, hello, what is it? I looked at the phone, I got scared, I went, oh, and I hung up real quick. And I told everybody about it. I was like, my heart was, I was like this, yo, look. Because you always hear about that they have pack numbers for people to call, and you hit these codes, and you can talk directly to the investigators. They had it printed on fucking stickers and billboards in fucking Danbury, Connecticut, I remember. You know, they had it on papers like, hey, you can call this number and report anything to SIS. And they're the Special Investigative Services. And they're the investigators of the prison. So, you know, it's always, I've seen a lot of comments about, you know, things about rats and this and that. And listen, we hate them. They're scumbags. We don't mess around with them. We don't want them in our crew. If you told on your case, and you're a subscriber to this channel, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not involved in that life anymore. You know what I mean? A great line in a song was, we're going in on a verse, we ain't going in on a brick. So I really don't care. But generally speaking, I don't want to be around people physically that would jeopardize my reputation. My reputation is I'm a solid guy, and you can't hang around with people that aren't. It's just the code of the street, you know? And for those people that have been unfairly labeled rats or stoob, I want to hear from you, because I've had 2 instances where there was guys in the club I was a member at telling me certain things, and I've done some investigation, and, you know, a lot of things didn't add up. You know, and one of those people got out and wrote a book about supposedly the other people that were actually the informants. Another person actually got back in the club because it wasn't true. So it happens everywhere. And, you know, me personally, I always say, listen, just show me the paperwork. And if you got it, and people have produced it to me and be like, hey, John, see this guy you're messing around with? Here it is. And I have to take that and be, you know, like, appreciative. I have to be like, hey, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the code. But I've also had people say, oh, you went into this guy's restaurant. He's a stool pigeon. I can't believe you did that. Then come to find out, I'm like, whoa, I didn't know any of this. You know what I mean? And then when I said, hey, this is the restaurant I was at. Is that guy a stool pigeon that owns this? And they were like, oh, my fault. Wrong restaurant. Calling my friends, you're making people go crazy. Come on. Just be sure. Let your friend, if we're in the same, listen, I'm out of this criminal lifestyle. I'm not engaged in it anymore, right? but I still have my reputation that I guard because I like to be around loyal people and solid people. Because obviously, if somebody tells me a secret and somebody says, hey, John, or if somebody confides in me and says, hey, this is what's going on in my life today. I don't want nobody to know this, but I need to share it with you. Then I'd like them to think that their secret is sacred with me. It boils down to every single facet of life. Like the line in the song says, we're going in on a verse, we ain't going in on a brick. And I think that's perfect in today's world. But I bored you way too long with this. I'm going live on TikTok over here. And that's it. That's the episode today. And listen, keep the comments coming because every single week's episode is from the comments from the previous week. And share this content. Share this channel. Have your friends subscribe. Check it out. More to come.